Sir, this is first class. The sentence hit like a rubber stamp to the chest flat, routine, impersonal. It came from a woman with controlled posture and a name tag, the color of silver, Sloane Dupree, purser. She stood in the aisle between row 2 and 3 with the cool composure of someone who believed the aisle belonged to her. Marcus D. Carter, plain navy sweatshirt, dark jeans, nondescript black travel sneakers, slid his carry-on beneath seat 3A, clicked the latch on his seatbelt, and lifted his gaze to meet hers. "I'm aware," he said. "Boarding pass says so too." The overhead bin hummed shut. From 4A, an older man in a wool sport coat. "Mr. Carlyle," banker's face. Banker's patience watched with a small, satisfied frown. Beside him, a white-haired woman in pearls, Mrs. Eliza Carmichael. Posture like a metronome, tilted her head as if examining an exhibit. Farther back, the phone of Jalen Whitaker, blue check, travel vlogger, 5.2 million followers, tilted up to capture the moment, the camera lens, a tiny, hungry eye. "First class is for people who booked it," said a smooth voice 2 rows behind Marcus. He didn't turn. He didn't need to. He knew those voices. He knew them in a way teeth know the grain of a nail. Taylor Sloan, now CEO of the sprawling conglomerate that had once been Marcus's home turf, oiled that remark with easy authority. On either side of Taylor, his long-ago lieutenants, Neil Chambers, chief legal officer whose sentences always ended like closing doors, and Bryce Halperin, head of strategy, who turned empathy into a spreadsheet and filed it under non-essential. "You can always tell," Bryce added. "There's a posture." "Or a watch," Neil said, the absence of one. Laughter bubbled low, practiced, 3 notes of the same chord. Andre, grad student, black, hoodie zipped. Seat 2D aisle shifted forward, lips parting with the start of a sentence that immediately collapsed. He looked down and pretended to read the abstract of his thesis proposal on his tablet screen. Routinized humiliation, spectacle, bias, and the corporate gaze. He knew what was happening. He'd written papers with titles like that. He also knew what happened to people who tested the fairness of systems in their most public spaces. They became examples. They were never examples for long. Across the aisle, Rachel, HR specialist in an efficient blazer, gave a professional half-glance that said, "I see this. This is above my pay grade. This is not mine." Jalen's stream went live. Luxair LA 417, New York to San Francisco, and fam, it's going down early, he whispered. "Looks like a seat situation up in first. Let's get those likes up. Turn on sound. This is why y'all follow me." He aimed the lens like a torch. Sloane Dupree kept her smile tight. She had learned long ago the 3 sacred phrases of first class: "Welcome aboard," "Can I get you anything?" and "That's not possible." She had the posture of a patrol boat guarding a marina full of expensive yachts. "Sir," she said carefully, "may I see your boarding pass?" Marcus held out his phone. She didn't touch it. She leaned in with the hesitation of someone inspecting a counterfeit bill. The QR code sat there, square and certain. She took the phone, thumb and forefinger pinched, and weighed the name without saying it out loud. "Carter," she read, finally. "Mr. Carter." The Mr. carried the same energy as boy. Behind Marcus, the 3 executives leaned inward as if to smell the scene. "Scalped," Bryce murmured. "Resold," Neil suggested. "Or upgraded on sympathy," Taylor opined. "Luxair is cracking down on fraud," Sloane told Marcus. "We've had incidents. This cabin is extremely controlled." "My seat," Marcus said, voice low. 3A, purchased. "With miles?" Taylor asked, brightly. "Or am I stereotyping?" Jalen panned past rows like a miner sifting for gold, his chat exploding. "Laugh my ass off, this guy is cooked. Not the fake seat. Watch the purser drop the hammer. Or we're watching harassment." Sloane's smile chilled by half a degree. "Sir, please step aside. We'll re-verify at the gate." "That won't be necessary," Marcus said. He gestured toward the scanner, where the gate agent had beeped him aboard. "You scanned it." He did not raise his voice. He didn't have to. Silence traveled faster than anger. The PA barked to life. The pilot a clipped baritone. Flight attendants, please prepare for departure. We are tight on time. Tower advising wheels up in 9 minutes. Captain Ezra Morton, experienced. The kind of voice that could land a plane on glass. Sloane's eyes flicked to the forward galley, then to the camera lens she pretended not to see. She had that sixth sense. Flight crews develop the ability to feel pressure, like turbulence, before instruments do. Sir, she said, you're holding the operation. Please relocate to economy while we confirm. Ma'am, Marcus replied, still seated. No, it wasn't volume, it was calibration. It was a key change. The little word sat on the carpet like a stone. A rustle. The wealthy metronome in pearls bent toward her aisle mate. This is exactly why people are uneasy, Mrs. Carmichael whispered, not whispering at all. Please handle him so everyone else can relax. Mr. Carlyle added, soft and smug, people aren't suspected without reason. Andre's mouth made another brave false start. He folded it back into himself. Think again. Live to write. Rachel adjusted her cuff and stared at the safety card. Security to gate 31, Sloane told her crew intercom. We need an assist. The intercom cracked back, your typist's voice warmed by terminal coffee. Nadia Rosenthal, ground operations. We're seeing a live stream, Sloane. I don't like it. Remove the passenger. We'll rebook. We can't have this in first. Copy. Marcus opened his phone and typed without hurry. 3 messages, 1 contact labeled simply, Counsel. Behind him, the chorus resumed. Taylor tapped Neil's elbow. Remember when he wouldn't adjust numbers to make us look leaner in Q4? What'd you call it, Neil, back then? Insufficient imagination, Neil said. No, not a culture fit, Taylor corrected. We gave him a generous exit for a CFO who couldn't align. Resigned, Bryce said with a smile that never reached his eyes. That was the line. Resigned, Taylor repeated, enjoying the air quotes no one could see. Jalen boosted his gain. Careful recording could be evidence. Boo Dude's bluffing. She asked for his boarding pass. How's this complicated? Sloane planted in the aisle. Right angles. Sir, last chance. Move to economy. Miss Dupree, Marcus said, reading her tag, placing the syllables precisely. Scan the QR. It's not complicated. I've told you. Scan the QR. A quiet war. A pitched look. She didn't move. The span of a heartbeat stretched long and taut. Then the aisle bobbed with the up-aisle march of Officer Craig Boone, airport security, black gloves in his belt, square chin set for performance. What's the issue? Sloane didn't bother with nuance. Passenger in wrong cabin refusing to comply. What's your name, sir? Marcus answered. Boone's eyes flicked to the boarding pass, to Sloane, back to the man in 3A. He had the expression of someone selecting from a menu of outcomes and choosing the one with the most decisive mouthfeel. Sir, let's make this easy, Boone said. Grab your bag. No. Marcus again, same weight. You're about to make a decision on camera, Officer Boone. Boone's jaw tightened. He hadn't looked at the camera. He hadn't needed to. He'd been in enough terminals to know when an invisible audience was counting. Sir. Craig, Sloane slid in, a hand's breadth from Boone's sleeve. He's disrupting the operation. We're at risk of a slot loss. Nadia's voice needled the intercom again from the ground. Handle it, Sloane. We're getting tagged. Luxair can't be seen coddling policy violators. Andre felt heat rise into his cheeks. It had a taste metallic, close to blood. Say something. Say. Excuse me, came from the back. Jalen, out loud for once, despite still streaming. I fly this route all the time. Y'all, she's doing her job. Bro's grandstanding for clout. He swung the camera to catch Bryce's grin. We love the crew, right? Absolutely, Taylor said, voice polished like a press release. Procedure is procedure. Policy is policy, Neil echoed. You can't let people jump the rope. Mrs. Carmichael nodded like a judge. Mr. Carlyle presented his profile to the idea of justice. Rachel looked at the call button, didn't press it. Marcus raised his left hand, sleeve falling just enough to show a scar 3 inches long on the inside of his forearm. It wasn't part of the moment. It was just a history page briefly turned. He placed his phone face up on the tray table. The lock screen showed a photograph of a dog, old and smiling. "Officer Boone," Marcus said, "if you remove me, you'll be party to a civil rights complaint and corporate interference claim. Your supervisors will have to explain why a paid, verified first-class passenger was ejected at the request of 3 men who have a known history with him. All of this," he gestured gently at Jalen's camera, "is archived already." Boone sneered. "Known history?" Taylor chuckled. "Delusional." Bryce's smile thin-bladed. "He used to work under us ages ago. Long story." "Short story," Neil corrected, "is that he didn't meet the bar." The cockpit door cracked a few inches. Captain Ezra Morton peered out, read the air the way one reads weather, a pilot's first skill. "What's the delay, Purser?" "Fraudulent seat," Sloan reported crisply. "Non-compliance. We're removing." Ezra's jaw bunched. He scanned faces, phones, posture. The uniform gave him a kind of holy presence people looked on instinct. He locked eyes with Marcus. Something incongruent there. The man in 3A had none of the fizz of panic. The stillness was too deliberate. "Hold movement," Ezra told Boone. "Purser, verify." "Captain, verify." Sloane's lips thinned. She scrolled the manifest on her tablet, tapped, frowned. "He scans as 3A, but what?" "The ticket class. It's flagged as corporate allocation, special inventory." Taylor sat up a fraction. Neil stopped smiling. Bryce folded his arms. "Special inventory to whom?" Ezra asked. Sloan didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her eyes flicked to the forward phone. It rang. She grabbed it, nodded, went colorless. She held the handset like it might shock her again. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Captain, for you." Ezra took the receiver, turned his back to the cabin, out of old habit and new fear. Morton. Whatever he heard on the other end stripped the paint from the moment. His eyes widened, then narrowed with the practiced discipline of a man who'd flown through storms bigger than his decisions. He hung up, opened the cockpit door fully, and stepped into the aisle with the quiet purpose of consequence. "Everyone step away from 3A, Ezra said. It wasn't a request. Boone took half a step in defiance and felt the authority in the air push back like gravity. "Miss Dupree," Ezra continued, voice even, "apologize to Mr. Carter. Then gather your kit." "I, Captain, with respect," I followed. "Now?" The word jumped a degree in temperature. Sloan swallowed. Her smile tried to resurrect itself and collapsed on takeoff. "Mr. Carter," she said, voice brittle, "on behalf of the crew, I—" "Stop." Ezra lifted a hand. He faced the cabin, allowed all the cameras their angle. "Ladies and gentlemen, there has been a grave misjudgment. Mr. Carter is a designated representative of Luxair's strategic investment partner. His seat and presence are authorized at the highest level." Andre felt something inside him rise and breathe. Taylor's jaw locked. Neil had to find a new place to put his eyes. Bryce's neck blotched red. "What?" Jalen said, breaking character. "It wasn't for the stream. It was for himself." Ezra wasn't finished. "Miss Dupree, you are relieved of duty effective immediately. You will deplane at the gate and await instruction from HR. Officer Boone, stand down. Ground Ops will not instruct this flight regarding cabin disposition going forward." Nadia's voice bled through an overhead chime, an attempt to reassert ground control, but Ezra clicked the interphone off like a light. "This aircraft," Ezra said, "will not be run by a trending topic." The cabin changed shape. Patients leaned into the surgery. The laser-red dot moved to another chest. Sloan stood motionless, hands at her sides, face the color of paper. The job had been her scaffolding. Board and bolt by board and bolt, he'd just taken it away. "Captain," Taylor protested, the varnish rubbing off his tone, We have no idea who this man. Ezra held up a small, elegant triangle of paper. A card. The edges were beveled. The gold letters gleamed without shouting. He didn't say the name on it. He didn't have to. The corporate initials alone carried the burn of capital. If you insist on pressing, Ezra said, we can do this with lawyers. Jalen's stream hiccuped with thousands of "oh" reactions. His chat split like a river finds a rock. Some called it a setup. Some called it justice. Some waited for blood. Sloan made a last stand, because some people are built to believe rules are something you point outward. Captain, I acted within protocol. Marcus finally turned fully to look at her. Protocol is a floor, he said. You fell through it. He reached into his leather folio, hands slow, movements broadcast. He removed a document binder and laid it on the tray table with the same careful respect someone might set down an urn. This is Luxair's Service Equity Reform Initiative, signed by the board 2 months ago, he said. Clause 9. Any employee who subjects a passenger to disparate treatment based on protected characteristics during ticket verification or seating will be subject to immediate suspension pending termination. Live-streamed or recorded incidents will automatically trigger forensic review and executive oversight. You acknowledged receipt on your crew app, Miss Dupree, 19 days ago at 8:42 a.m. He slid a printed acknowledgement screen across the table. Her digital signature glowed in gray. Sloan made a small sound in her throat. The frame of the woman held. Its contents collapsed. Rachel inhaled. The kind of inhale HR professionals take when text has teeth. What gives you the right, Bryce snapped, forgetting the camera for a second, to waltz in here with reform programs and dictate terms? Ownership, Marcus said simply. Responsibility. Memory. Taylor laughed too bright, too quick. Memory. Your memory of being forced out when you couldn't handle the numbers? He turned to the stream with the ease of an ad man finding his mark. Folks, fun fact. This gentleman used to be a CFO under us. Used to be. Wouldn't approve standard adjustments. Thinks ethics is a brand strategy. We kept him on board until he voluntarily resigned. Jalen zoomed in. The chat squealed. Receipts, or it didn't happen, scrolled like a river of dare. Neil chimed in. The cadaverous smoothness of legal disclaimers. We can provide historical documentation to support Mr. Sloan's characterization. The narrative you're hearing now is aspirational. They had switched lanes. They were doubling down. Something ancient and ugly clicked into gear, the power of 3 white men to speak an alternate reality into a room until the room wore it as uniform. Marcus didn't flex. He didn't flare. He clicked, opened his phone, and watched the time tick. 12, 7. Then, he sent one more text. Now. He looked up at Ezra. Captain, may I borrow the PA in 30 seconds? Ezra, a keeper of rules and a breaker of silences, said, You may. Counter-narrative already prepped? Taylor taunted. You staging your redemption arc? Redemption, Marcus said, is for the guilty. The forward phone rang again. Ezra braced this time, but the handset passed quickly to Taylor. The caller ID glowed on the screen in white letters he could not misread. Board chair. Taylor smiled, like a man whose favorite song had come on in a cab. Madeline, he said, pressing speaker, you're seeing this? We're cleaning it up, don't worry. Frankly, we're protecting the brand. Give the phone to Marcus, Madeline said. The charm peeled off her voice. What remained was steel you could build a bridge with. Silence. Then the sound of Taylor not moving. Now, she said. Taylor's hand jerked as if yanked by a string. He held the phone toward Marcus across the aisle with a stiff little motion, the way a child extends a broken toy to the person who can fix it. Madeline, Marcus said calmly, leaving the phone on speaker because transparency had become a ritual offering. Good afternoon. I owe you a public apology, Marcus, she said. It won't mean much yet. It will at the right time. As for these 3, her voice hardened, you are all terminated, effective immediately. Check your emails when you land. Legal will manage the details. Your badges and access will be revoked by the time our wheels touch ground. Neil recovered first. Lawyers learn to find air in small rooms. On what basis? Conduct inconsistent with fiduciary duty, reputational harm, and a pattern of behavior that suggests moral hazard, Madeline said. Also, for being embarrassingly predictable on camera. Bryce's mouth worked. No sound. Taylor forced a laugh that had lost its joke. We'll appeal. You won't, Madeline replied. The call clicked dead. 3 men sat as if the plane had stopped in midair and left them running. Jalen's camera swung to Marcus's face, waiting for a smirk. He didn't find one. He found the still water of a reservoir. Taylor's phone buzzed again. A new name flashed. Counsel Carter. He flinched, then answered like a man stepping into a cold river. A calm voice filled the space between seats. Mr. Sloan, Mr. Chambers, Mr. Halperin, our office represents Mr. Carter in several capacities. We are notifying you that the false statements made about his prior employment today have been captured, preserved, and will be included in an action regarding defamation and tortious interference. Additionally, our client is the designated representative of the Strategic Fund, with the material holding in your parent company, and several independent strategic investors have reached out to us this hour with concerns over your conduct on board Lux Air LA 417. Material holding? Bryce said faintly. Enough to ask new questions at old meetings, the counsel said. You'll receive documentation. The voice ended the way doors end. Ezra looked like a man who had seen weather change without a front. He swallowed and handed the PA to Marcus. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus said, voice filling the cabin, rolling softly into row after row. I apologize for the delay. What you've witnessed is not a situation, it's a system being itself in public. Phones tilted up, then down. People adjusted their own faces to the mirror of that sentence. My team has compiled 3 months of Luxair passenger complaints involving bias 243 incidents. This is not a small number. It is also not a number that stays the same. Starting today, it goes down. He tapped his screen. Ezra's pilot iPad pinged. The forward galley monitor lit. Sloane's crew tablet vibrated one last time, as if to say, look. Captain Morton, Marcus continued, you will have an email in your inbox from the Luxair board committing to immediate actions. Suspension of personnel for verified discriminatory incidents. Independent audits of cabin procedures, passenger verification protocols that remove discretion from bias, and a public apology to be read on this flight before pushback. They will also announce a zero-tolerance policy with enforcement metrics and publish quarterly transparency reports by today's close. Ezra lifted his tablet. The subject line read exactly that. His face cracked into something like disbelief and relief at the same time. In addition, Marcus said, the airport authority has received the file documenting Officer Boone's conduct in 4 prior removals flagged for civil complaints. He will be placed on leave pending review. Boone straightened as if to grow taller and discovered his spine had become a countdown clock. Sloane's voice, small now. Mr. Carter Marcus, I thought I was protecting the cabin. It's what we're taught. What you're taught is to read people like barcodes, Marcus said. Some scanners are broken. Her mouth trembled. Please, I can learn. I can be better. This is my life. He looked at her long enough that the moment had to decide what it wanted to be. I don't accept apologies, he said. Not unkind. I accept change. She nodded too fast, tears brightening. I'll do it. I will. Whatever the program is, I'll do it. Then start by listening, he said, and handed the PA to Ezra. Ezra took the mic like a man taking an oath. On behalf of Luxair, I am sorry, he said, letting the words be plain and heavy. We will not look away from what just happened. We will act. The cabin held still. A few hands touched together carefully, not sure if this was a moment for applause or witnessing. Taylor found his voice again and used it the way he always had, to try to knit a parachute out of words as he fell. "You think this saves you?" he spat at Marcus, forgetting the PA had its own memory. "Your little crusade, we made you resign, and if you hadn't today, we'd make you again tomorrow. You're a story. You're content. And in a week, this'll be just another clip online." Marcus looked at him like a teacher looks at a student who has mistaken volume for comprehension. "My legal team will call you," he said. "In less than a minute." Bryce barked out a laugh that sounded wrong in the cabin's pressurized air. "We're waiting." Phones vibrated. The minute became 40 seconds, then 30, then 20. Taylor's phone rang. Unknown didn't flash. A name did. The board chair again. He smiled like a man being lifted. "Speaker. Madeline, look. This show. Put Marcus back on," she said. He did. The board chair's voice filled the aisle. "Marcus, I've convened an emergency session. We will implement the plan you drafted 6 weeks ago in full. As for these three, their removal is final. One more note: they violated specific covenants with our strategic investors. That's not just HR, that's material." She paused. The sound of other people breathing in a conference room far away traveled all the way to row 3. "We'll brief you post-landing," she finished. "You have our authority." The call cut. Taylor stared at the pattern in the carpet as if it might show him a door. "Enough," Ezra said. He gestured to the forward galley. "Officer Boone, escort these 3 gentlemen off my aircraft." "You can't," Neil began. Ezra raised an eyebrow. "I can." Jalen swung his lens to catch the procession. Taylor shook off Boone's hand with a last flicker of superiority, and then saw the phones and lowered his eyes. Bryce went pale. For the first time, he looked human. Neil mouthed words to himself that sounded like, "Not like this." Mrs. Carmichael tugged her cardigan closed, as if a wind had found her. Mr. Carlyle looked like someone had moved his desk while he was out to lunch. As Boone passed Jalen, the influencer blurted, "Captain, sir, can you say something for the stream?" Ezra took the phone mid-air, not like a hostage, but like a choir mic. "Luxair apologizes to every passenger who has ever been made to feel they didn't belong in a seat they paid for," he said. "We will do better, because you deserve better." He handed the phone back like a prayer folded in half. Jalen swallowed. His voice, when it came, didn't belong to his persona. "Mr. Carter," he said, Look, I was chasing engagement. I didn't think. My stream's causing a lot of heat. They're saying a sponsor pulled. There's a number floating around, 1,000,000.2. It's not floating," Marcus said, his tone softened by a single degree. "It's a number." Jalen's face went open. "Oh boy, I can't cover that." "No one asked you to," Marcus replied, "but you will make amends." "Anything. Anything. You'll partner on the Service Equity Reform Campaign as a lead voice," Marcus said. "You will host segments, feature trainings, platform the change, verify deliverables, 90 days. If you hit the targets, your exposure drops to 150. Jalen exhaled like someone who had just been yanked from a riptide. 150. Yes, sir. I'll do more. I'll show up." "Showing up is the floor," Marcus said again. Andre unbuckled himself before remembering the light was still on. He stood anyway. The cabin had become another kind of classroom. "Mr. Carter," he asked, "I thank you for today, for how you held the line." Marcus tilted his head. "You didn't speak." Andre flushed. "I know. I told myself I was not the story, but that's just another phrase for afraid." "Fear's honest," Marcus said. "So is opportunity." Andre took a breath that made him bigger. "Then let me work. I'm writing my thesis on this. On us. On not looking away. Let me intern for the campaign. Let me count what matters." "Send me your chapters," Marcus said. "Then your hands." Andre nodded. It wasn't a nod from a student. It was one man to another. Rachel stepped into the aisle, palm outstretched, card at the ready. "I'm HR," she said. "If you ever need—" "I need HR when it's inconvenient," Marcus said gently, not taking the card. "Not after." Rachel flinched, then swallowed, and didn't argue. "Understood," she said, and she meant it. You could tell by how she looked at her own card like a mirror. Mrs. Carmichael wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Mr. Carlyle folded his arms around his quiet. Ezra closed the cockpit door and came back on the PA. His voice had learned something. It came out heavier, better, truer. "Flight attendants, prepare the cabin for departure. We'll be wheels up in 8. The cabin lights dimmed to that pre-takeoff hush. Sloane left with an escort, shoulders small. Another crew member slipped into her place, eyes wide at inheriting a scene already written. As the plane surged back from the gate, Jalen killed his stream. He didn't need the hearts right now. He needed his own. Marcus looked out his window at a tug trundling by, orange vest bright in the gray. He felt the heaviness of adrenaline drain in careful grams. He texted one more time. "Wheels up, push the release." Somewhere, in a glass office, a team hit publish on a press release with the dry heat of honesty in its paragraphs. The Atlantic took the wing, and the wing took the light. New York turned into a problem the sky solved by making it small. Half an hour in, the cabin found its rhythm. Drinks appeared. Apologies echoed like the ghost of a song. Ezra stopped by 3A, resting a hand on the edge of the headrest. "We'll land to cameras," he said quietly. "That's not new," Marcus replied. "For you, maybe?" "For us," Marcus corrected. "Not for me." Ezra nodded. "You were right to say the thing you said on the PA." "Which thing?" "That we watched a system be itself. I've flown 23 years. I've seen a lot of weather. The worst wasn't outside." "Then change the weather inside." "I will," Ezra said, "with or without a flight plan." They flew. People slept like people sleep in public, badly and contrite. Mid-flight, a message ticked into Marcus's inbox from a name that made both his eyebrows lift. Sloane Dupree. Mr. Carter Marcus. "I know it isn't your job to read this. It might not be your desire either." You said, "Listen first." I did. I've replayed my words and face a dozen times. I saw the person I am and the person I'm paid to be. They matched. That's the worst part. I want to do the program. Not to save my job. To save myself for the next passenger who looks like you and the next one who doesn't. I'm sorry. Not for your approval. For the harm. Sloane. Marcus didn't reply. Not because he hadn't heard her. Because the moment didn't require his voice. He scrolled next to a thread labeled Board Equity. Approvals marched down the screen. Implement. Open. Report. 2 hours later, the Rockies rose like arguments. 3 hours later, California shrugged open to sea. They landed into the sun and a wall of microphones. Ezra walked down the jet bridge with his cap under his arm, his pilot's hair leaving indentations. In his day, he spoke first, because that was his job now. "We are this airline," he said to the press. "And we did this today. We will be a different airline tomorrow, because we have to be." Marcus stepped out into the wash of it last, a man who made sure people got off before he did. He moved past the podiums and cameras to the quiet, where a door read conference and a waiting room held a woman with a tight bun and too many folders. He gave his name. She gave him a badge. The badge opened the door. 6 months later. Numbers don't apologize. They testify. The campaign's dashboard glowed on a wall big enough to hold a scoreboard. Up 12%, down 40. Left, right, up again. Every piece of movement a little stress test of what belief could do, if it turned into policy and then into motion. Luxair had done something rare in corporate life. It had meant it. 63.4% increase in stock value since the reforms. 217% revenue lift on key routes where service equity training rolled out first, sustained across quarters. 248 documented bias incidents, In the 3 months prior to LA, 417 had dipped to 37 inches the last quarter. Each one audited, each one addressed, each one expensive on purpose. Ezra had made the apology his pre-flight script. He didn't read it now, he carried it. He'd retired Officer Boone's shadow by insisting on signed verifications, not hunches. He slept differently. That mattered too, though it didn't show up on any chart. Jalen Whitaker turned his channel into a clinic. He put the camera where it hurt him. He introduced specialists, amplified crew voices, flew to cities not on his sponsorship map. He brought 3,158 members of his fan base into the volunteer system, auditing airports and airline counters, logging treatment patterns, and praising good service like Americans praise touchdowns. He hit the targets. He paid the $150 without a whine and called it tuition. In a packed hall at a state university, Andre defended his thesis. He didn't read it. He delivered it like a verdict. He drew lines between minutes on a plane and centuries in a country. 317 students signed a volunteer form after, not because he asked nicely, but because he made it their work. He had a job by the end of the week designing measurement architecture for the campaign, then a better job 2 months later writing the next chapter. Rachel didn't hand out cards anymore like candy. She wrote a manual for HR that began with a sentence in bold. If you show up only when it is safe, you have already arrived too late. She pressed for a hotline that topped out at the board, bypassing people like her if people like her got soft. She slept worse for a while, and then better. Some people called that growth. She called it finally doing her job. Mrs. Carmichael mailed a check to a civil rights clinic with a letter that said nothing except I was there. It was wrong to accept money as penance. It was worse not to try. Mr. Carlisle didn't write anything. He read and reread the story every time his paper ran a follow-up feature, watching himself vanish into a crowd he had previously thought of as supporting cast. Sloan wrote again. Subject: Progress Report Sloan. Marcus, I learned to hear my name said by people with every reason to spit it. I stood in front of a room and said the words, I was wrong, without crying, then with crying, then without again. I shadowed nurses in a hospital wing to learn dignity with my hands. I'm in the program. I am the program. If there's a path back to a cabin with a cart, I'll push it. If there isn't, then this is what it is to become a human who flies differently through the world. Thank you for not giving me forgiveness. It made me work for something else. Sloan asterisk. Marcus filed the email into a folder called Lives. The campaign didn't have a finish line. It had a practice. On mornings he woke heavy with the energy of old fights. Marcus went to the office early and stood in front of the wall of numbers. He let them tell him what they meant. He asked if meaning was enough. Then he made a call to someone whose morning had started with a story like his used to. Cramped, humiliating, avoidable. The phone calls never got easy. They got honest. That was the right direction. Later that day, an all-staff memo from Luxair went live with a headline that wasn't a headline at all. It was an email Sloan had sent him privately, with permission to use in full. From Sloan Dupree. Subject: Thank you for boarding. I was trained to think the aisle is mine. Today, I know the aisle is ours. Thank you for boarding. I will do my part to make sure you land with your dignity still yours. The message broke some internal record for responses. The point wasn't the record. The point was, the replies weren't performative. They contained names of relatives and nights in airports, and little boys in suits for funerals and women who carried bottled water in purses not for themselves, but because they never knew when a stranger would need a drink more than they needed the weight off their shoulder. In the end, that became the quiet program beneath the program, people seeing people on their way to somewhere else. At a quarterly board meeting, the last item on the agenda wasn't financial. Madeline projected a screenshot from the day everything broke, the frame frozen on a man in 3A who had not stood up when told. She left it on the screen just long enough for the room to feel the weight, then replaced it with a slide of 3 numbers. 63.4%. 217%. 37. That was the language the room understood. That was how you translate dignity for people whose native tongue is the bottom line. At the close, Ezra and Marcus walked from the glass room into the ordinary hallway, the way men do after deciding something that no headline can hold. "Do you ever wish it had gone differently?" Ezra asked. "I wish it had gone differently for me when I was 22, Marcus said. And 28, and 37. But that day on the plane? No. We used the audience for something other than a spectacle. We turned them into witnesses." "You turned them," Ezra corrected. Marcus shook his head. "We did. Me alone is what got me into trouble in the first place. You too. The aisle is ours." They rode an elevator down to a lobby where a child watched airplanes through a window big enough to make the whole future fit. The child clutched a toy plane in one hand and his grandmother's hand in the other. The grandmother looked a little like Mrs. Carmichael might, in better light. The boy looked like anyone could look, because that's how children look before the world tells them where to sit. Marcus stood for a second next to them, not long, just long enough to see the toy's nose bounce against the glass and leave a smudge the cleaning staff would find later and erase. He smiled, then headed to his next meeting, where numbers would move like birds and people like weather. On his way out, he checked his inbox. One new message. From Jalen at Whitaker.live. Subject: "We hit the target." Marcus. "We crossed the line. The 9th airport certified. The comments on the stream, different. Kids in my DMs telling me they spoke up. Old dudes, apologizing for old things. For what it's worth, thanks for charging me tuition. Jay." The reply he sent was brief. "Keep your receipt. You'll need it for the next thing you learn." He put his phone away and let the lobby swallow him. Nobody clapped, nobody filmed. The day moved on. That was the victory that never makes the cut, the ordinary continuing, improved by work. Some nights, he allowed himself one indulgence. He watched 14 seconds of Jalen's old stream, the part where the camera shook for the first time. He watched Andre's defense open with a joke bad enough to be perfect, and watched the room love him for it. He read Rachel's manual and circled the sentence about timing. He opened Sloane's email again and again, and not because he liked her or because he was proud. He opened it because it was a receipt too. Then he closed all of it. Because there was always another flight. Another aisle. Another seatbelt clicking across a person who had not come to be an example but would be made into one anyway, unless someone, everyone, decided not to look away. He texted Ezra before bed. "Wheels up tomorrow 6:10 a.m. You flyin'?" The reply came fast. "I am now." Marcus set his phone on the nightstand where the old dog could see it. He slept. Morning came early. Planes were on time. People went where they were going. And sometimes, if they were lucky, they arrived with their dignity still in the overhead bin, and their name said correctly by the person in the aisle. Your turn. Have you witnessed discrimination in travel, work, or daily life? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience matters. Your voice can drive change, just like Marcus did. When you see injustice, document it. When you have power, use it responsibly. When you face discrimination, remember that your response can echo far beyond the moment. Hit subscribe to Racism Stories Today for more untold stories of quiet power, strategic resistance, and dignified triumph. Because sometimes the most powerful response is the one they never see coming. Share this story. Let others know that preparation beats confrontation, that dignity defeats discrimination, and that systematic change trumps individual revenge. Remember, you don't need to raise your voice to raise the standard, but you do need to raise your expectations and demand that the world rise to meet.